Today's project, well, there's lots of projects, but the project right now is we gotta do a radiator on a Pontiac G8 GT because they like to break where the top hose connects. Just broke off of there. Calls for an hour to do the job, to remove it and replace it, so shouldn't be too hard. First thing you need to do is jack the car up and drain the coolant. You could use a Phillips head or a flathead screwdriver. Just pull the plug out, have something to catch it in. It's gonna splash everywhere if you pull the plug all the way out. Sometimes I'll just loosen them to where they start dripping a little bit, then I'll go back up top and start disconnecting stuff and give it time to drain instead of making a mess everywhere. But go ahead and pull that plug out first, get all the coolant out of there. Next thing I'm going to do is get some of this intake out of the way. This one's aftermarket, so yours may be slightly different, but this one takes 7mm for the clamps. So I'm just going to disconnect the one closest to the throttle body, and then I'm going to disconnect the one closest to the mass airflow sensor and just pull it out of there. Disconnect whatever ones give you the most room and are fairly easy. Disconnect the mass airflow sensor itself, and this hose should pull out. Well, pulled off from the valve cover because I'm doing this one-handed. So remove the oil cap, and then the edge cover, and hose can come out with it. Next thing I'm going to do is get these hoses out of the way. So I'm going to disconnect this one on this side and then transfer it over. It goes right here. Then I'll transfer it over to the new one with it out of the car, just because I want to do what's easiest. And that looks a little tight to get it off there. So hose clamps off. If the hose doesn't want to come off, just grip it with pliers, twist to break it free, and then it'll pull off. And then we got this one for the overflow bottle. It has no clamps, it just pulls off the water neck. Then we got to disconnect the fan electrical connector. Gonna have to put the phone down. Now we can pull the fan out. Fan's got these clips right here, which you can use flathead or whatever for. I'm obviously using the needle nose pliers. Just push them, and then the fan goes backwards. And then make sure this hose is out of the way. The fan should come up. AC lines and stuff are in the way, so it might be a little tight and you have to figure out exactly how it needs to come. Left driver's side, passenger side, whatever. Should come straight up. The fan is out. What was actually holding it in a little bit were these transmission lines. They're clipped into the fan right here. So just push the lines out of those clips, then the fan will come right up. And then we need to get those lines disconnected from the radiator itself. And I'll show you how to do that. So to get the lines off, you have to pull back this little cover right here. And you see there's little clips inside that connector. I generally use a right angle pick, and you have to get on one end of the clip start to pull it out, just like that. Then go inside the clip. Put your finger on the other side so you can trap the clip between the pick and your finger. Then pull them out. Place them somewhere where you won't let it drop into the engine bay or something. I'm just going to use the floor and put my pick right next to it so I know where it's at. And then you got to take the other one out too, obviously. But then the lines just pull straight out. And I'll use the needle nose to help me. The line pulls straight out. And you're going to lose transmission fluid, obviously. So be ready for that. Now we need to take these little pieces off that hold the radiator in place. So you have this piece. You're gonna get underneath it, pry it up, and all the way out. Then you can see in there, there's that little tab. So you want to get on that tab with a flathead, pull back like that, because it's got all these little ridges right here that it clips onto. So you need to pull it back like that, and then pull this piece up. I'm going to try to video while I'm doing it. Just get something else under here. I'm using the versatile needle nose pliers again, and that piece has started to come up now, and it's out. Now the radiator's loose. So now all we got left is that hose, which we'll disconnect off the bottom, and then the AC condenser, which is two 10mm bolts. So now I'm just gonna move the radiator back some, take those bolts out, try to set this so you can see. Use a wrench, ratchet, whatever. And I'm gonna have to also, because my electric ratchet won't fit in there. So now I got my 10mm wrench, and we're just gonna take these bolts out. Once it's loose enough with the wrench, go ahead and take it out with your fingers, because that's faster. And then same thing on the other side. Once those bolts are out, the AC condenser is separated. It's still in the bottom. You're gonna have to pull it up and push it towards the front of the car so it's not stuck in the radiator anymore. Now all we got left is this hose, which I'm probably gonna take off right here. Just same thing as everything else because of ease. Get you some pliers that can obviously open up a decent amount. I got my favorite snap-on pliers. Move the clamp, open them up even more. Get on the hose, break it loose like we did with the other hose, and just pull it off back and forth. Now it's under this transmission line, so we're gonna have to bring it over the top of it, just like that. And now the radiator will come out. It'll pull straight up. And AC lines may be in the way. You may have to move the AC condenser forward again, but it'll come out now. And she's out most of the time. These little rubber pieces will come out too. Make sure to take them off, set them back in the car. You don't have to put them on the new radiator, just put them on the car. Right down here. And same thing on the driver's side. And now you can work backwards from there. You can stop watching the video if you don't need instructions on installing it, but I'm gonna install it too. First thing we're gonna do, make sure the drain plug is tight on this new one, and it was not. And now we're gonna check, make sure we got new clips, which we do. So that clip we took out, we could save the old clips for in case we lose one in the future. And now we got to transfer the low radiator hose to the new radiator. So I'll go ahead and do the radiator. Put it back in place. Make sure those little legs are in the mounts. The bushings we just put in there that we transferred from the old radiator. So again, you're gonna have to move stuff around a little bit to get the radiator all the way in. But just go slow so you don't break anything. Make sure you're not forcing it. So I actually found it easier to put the AC condenser in place first. The radiator's still not technically all the way in place. I just put the AC condenser in place down there first, and now I'm going to bolt it together. Alright, I got the fan on. Just tighten the bolts down with a wrench and then set the radiator back in place in those little bushings. And I put one of these on. They just slide down back in place. Just make sure you got it all the way down. Then go ahead and put the clips back in. It's a little tight, but it'll go in. Now the radiator's secure, and we can hook up this hose. Remember, it was under this transmission line, so we got to put it back under there. Put the hose back up. Make sure with these clamps that you put them back where they were on the hose. So set this down. So you can see the little indents on the hose. Make sure you put it back how it came off. So line up the clamp with the indents on the hose, and that's it. You can give it a couple taps to spread it apart a little bit more, but that's it. Now transmission lines go back in, and they will snap in. They won't just, there we go. That one snapped in. Push the cover back on. Snap this one in. And if you want, you can pull to make sure it doesn't pop back out. Put that cover back on. And normally if the covers go back on, it's all the way in place anyway. And now we'll grab the fan. The fan's pretty simple, just like before. You just got to make sure you get the 3 pieces on the fan lined up with these to slide in. You might have to go underneath and just pull the fan up and then down, because I had it where it was catching the lip of the radiator right here, and then I had to pull this way away from the radiator for it to slide down into place. And then the top clips are the same as before, well, backwards obviously, because we're putting it on, not taking it off. And you just have to make sure it's down all the way, and then snap them into place like so. And then we can snap the transmission lines into place down here. So there's one, and there's 2. Now, just grab your electrical connector, push it together until you hear it click. Go ahead and make sure it doesn't come out. Let's see. We put the hose, the top hose back on. We're going to do the same thing as before. And, well, this clamp, we didn't even take off because it was broke. But we're going to make sure the clamp sits in the same place it is right now when we put it back on. Alright, the hose is on. Now we can start reconnecting these hoses. That one goes there. We got this one, goes all the way over. And then we put it back in place on the fan shroud. Put both of them back in place on the fan shroud. Put this clamp back on. Now is the time I would start filling up the radiator. So I'm going to go grab some coolant and we're going to do that. Make sure you use Dex Cool. Only Dex Cool in a GM. This could probably be diluted a little more. So once we finish this one off, which was about half a gallon, we'll go ahead and put half a gallon of water in here, because this is actually a concentrate. I don't think it's been diluted at all. Just keep going with Dex Cool and water if it's the concentrate, or if it's pre-mixed, just go ahead and keep going until it's all the way full, and go ahead and leave the cap off for now. Now all we got left to do is put the intake back on there all the way, and put the engine cover on and the oil cap on. Then we're going to fire it up. Make sure to plug in the mass airflow sensor so it doesn't throw a code, and then we're going to fire it up and let it run, let it bleed down. I had it all the way topped off. It's bled down a little bit some more, but we're going to let it run with the cap off so it can bleed all of the air out of there. All right, the intake's on. The breather hose on the valve covers hooked back up. Engine covers on, oil caps on. Now all we're gonna do is start it, let it run, bleed some air out. We do want to make sure that we have the heat turned on. It doesn't have to be blasting, but it has to be turned on high. The temperature has to be turned on high, so the coolant will circulate through the heater core, so we can bleed the heater core out also. Otherwise, you're not going to get all the air out of it right now. We're actually going to turn the fan down so the car will heat up quicker. I have to wait for the car to heat up all the way so the thermostat can open and bleed all of the air out. You can see it's already went down some, so we're gonna fill it up a little bit, not all the way to the top, because it might come out once the thermostat starts to open. But we're just gonna let it run, fill it. As it goes down, we're gonna keep filling it till no air comes out. We're gonna make sure that the lower hose is the same temperature as the upper hose. That means that the thermostat has opened and all the air should be out of the system. So we're done. We go drive it, check it the next day or two, the coolant, just to be positive no more air was trapped in there, and that's it.